Come out of sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken hearted, the rescue begin. Come find your mercy, sinner come kneel. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not so far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who strayed. Come sit at table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can cure. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not so far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are, come as you are. Fall in his arms, oh, come as you are. There's hope for the morning, oh sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. And all who are broken, lift up your face. Wanderer, come home. You're not so far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart. Come as you are. Come as you are. Come as you are. Oh, come as you are.
Here we go. Go
Alright.
for it.
Ready.
Ready.
Anyway, Major Hensley, Major Hensley about the church. A day or other time, Major Hensley Bible study.
It is Henderson
And-
General Baptist Church. It is Bible study time.
Yeah.
And you have missed the last couple of Bible studies. Why have you not been on here with me? What have you been doing?
Yeah, I went to church.
You went to church.
Yeah.
I know you went
Yeah,
to church.
my
We
dog.
go to church, but why weren't you on here doing this Bible study with me?
Yeah.
You got other things going on? Yeah, we just couldn't
Yeah,
get it together for us. For anybody who's skirting by here and you have never seen us, my name is Chad, and I am the pastor at Henderson General Baptist Church. And we just want you to know that you can take the next 20, 25 minutes of your life, just slow down. We're looking at actually great chapters in the Bible. And I said Esther. Esther has more than one chapter. But we're also on Sunday mornings been talking about great women of the Bible. And this Sunday we're going to talk about Rachel. She is one of the greatest, most patient prayer warriors you would ever want to meet. And we're going to talk about her on Sunday. I'm going to have somebody else this Sunday probably. We're going to look at graduation time. Are you graduating high school?
Yeah.
What? How old are you?
17.
You're older than
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
Yeah, aren't you 19?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're
Yeah.
getting ready to graduate high school. Is Caitlin getting ready to graduate?
Yeah.
Caitlin's getting ready to graduate. I think that's our only two graduates. That's what I've been told. And, so we're going to try to keep all that straight. Tonight we're going to talk about Esther, and we're not going to read every verse in the Bible all the Esther. We're going to read actually two sets of verses out of two different chapters. So it's going to be and they're not going to go straight through. I want you to pick up on an idea, and then I want you to see a couple of words and how this can impact your life. So as we go through this, I want to remind you that this past Sunday, I gave the disciple call, discipleship call, and that discipleship call was to read 2 Chronicles 2:15 and to be praying and letting everyone know in your life, actually just making sure you know in your life that the battle belongs to the Lord. And then 2 Corinthians 10, verses 3 through 5, and then taking thoughts captive. And that's how we are to do it, is to take our thoughts captive. Mm-hmm. And then Romans chapter 8, verses 35 through 37, overwhelming victory. We have overwhelming victory, and that overwhelming victory comes through who?
What?
Who does the overwhelming victory come through?
Very true.
No, it comes through. It comes through Jesus Christ, doesn't it?
No.
Yeah.
I know.
So.
No. I would say I'm dealing with the word of God, but that's what we heard us say Bible church. I didn't really church that you walked out of Bible.
Everybody saw you at church, and Jesus did make a huge sacrifice, didn't he?
It's not a sacrifice.
It's not a sacrifice. Oh, he's saying it's not a sacrifice to go to church. That's what we should do, isn't it?
Yeah, but now, I mean, right now, God said,
so my hope is that we'll see you online at 8:45 if you're still doing the online thing. If you're doing the in-person, things are starting to open back up a little bit more, and we will continue to do that. The first part of June, we're going to be back to 100% capacity. So you got to get there early to find a seat. There won't be any seats left over, will there? So we're going to look at Esther, and we're going to look at just some verses. So we're going to skip some. I highly encourage you to read this entire book. It's a pretty quick read, actually. If you read the entire book of Esther, it's intriguing to read some of this. Esther is one of those books in the Bible that you go, some people over the years have wondered, should it even be in the Bible? And it is. And I'm thankful that it is at this point, for us to look to see how a woman in Esther changed the course of history for the Jewish nation and the Jewish people. And if it had been for Esther, things may have been way different. So, not to give anything away, let's look at Esther chapter. Let's see here. What am I doing? Oh, yeah, I got to go back up because I'm going to try to change the thing. Yeah, we're both in there, Mitchell, so we're good, isn't it?
Yeah, read the verse.
Huh?
Read verse.
You want to read the verse?
Yes.
Oh, well, then read the verse.
Okay.
Let's do this view though. Maybe this will be a bigger view, and then we can put 2 up at the same time.
Oh.
Yeah.
This is started.
Let me move this over just a little bit. There we go. Oh, not that much. I don't want to cut you off, Mitchell. There you go. Go ahead. Read it for a second, Mitchell, and then I'm going to take over.
Yeah. But when God when Jesus died on the cross.
Jesus died on the cross.
Power is His name.
And it is power in His name.
Power in His name, Almighty God. His promise onward. The power in His tries is power in God. In His tries
is the power in God.
That last week, by God, when we made sure that about study, I think I made sure that when we heard us about one of the powers, and I'm so excited and. So when we were, I think in the church, in the major Bible, I think when the church, in chapter 14, where it says, "You David Christ, Son of God." I think when it was full, and that's who He is.
That's who He is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even sure we need to read Esther because Mitchell, you just said a whole lot right there for people to grab a hold of, and he didn't read that out of Esther. You read that out of your heart, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Esther chapter 2 verse 5, and I know we're kind of skipping the end of this because there's so much there, yet I said it wouldn't take long to read. It will not take you long to read this. I encourage you to read the whole book. At that time there was a Jewish man in the fortress of Susa whose name was Mordecai, son of Jair. He was from the tribe of Benjamin and was a descendant of Kish and Shammai. His family had been among those who, with King Jehoiachin of Judah, had been exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. So this is in the time where things are being separated out. They're being displaced and moved. And this is not an easy time. But Mordecai is an essential person for us to remember. He goes on and it says, this man had a beautiful and lovely young cousin, Hadassah, who was also called Esther. When her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her into his family and raised her as his own daughter. As a result of the king's decree, Esther, along with many other young women, was brought to the king's harem at the fortress of Susa and placed in, I don't have my reading glasses on, Mitchell, Haggai's care. I want you to think about this just for a moment, this idea that Esther lost her family because of what was happening. She was adopted by Mordecai, and this is important. It's important to me because I have 6 children, and when I look at my family, I have 4 that are adopted into our family, and 3 of them being daughters. And I look at that and I think about how important that is. So the story, this account of what happened was Mordecai took her as his own and adopted him into his family. But then the king. Now you understand in those days, king was all. I mean, the king was everything. There was, when the king said it, it was his. It was at his pleasure. He did. These kings were not great people in general. They did whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, however they wanted. So we go on and it says, Haggai was very impressed with Esther and treated her kindly. He quickly ordered a special menu for her and provided her with beauty treatments. He also assigned her 7 maids specially chosen from the king's palace, and he moved her and her maids into the best place in the harem. Esther had not told anyone of her nationality and family background because Mordecai had directed her not to do so. Every day, Mordecai would take a walk near the courtyard of the harem to find out about Esther and what was happening to her. So up to this point, he's like, I'm a Jew, you're a Jew. Let's not talk about that to anybody. Let's not talk about our nationality. Let's not talk about being displaced. You're in a place that I want to make sure you're still being treated kindly. But the reality is Mordecai was losing control. He had no real control with his daughter at this point. So we see this, and he continues day after day taking these walks just to check up on her because he was still concerned for her. Esther was the daughter of Abihail, who was Mordecai's uncle. Mordecai had adopted his younger cousin, Esther. When it was Esther's turn to go to the king, she accepted the advice of Hegai, the eunuch in charge of the harem. She asked for nothing except what he suggested, and she was admired by everyone who saw her. So she didn't go in asking for a bunch of stuff. She just said, what should I be getting? What do I need? What is the things that I should have? And that's what she did. And that's what she went in asking for.
Yeah. Esther
was taken to King Xerxes at the royal palace in early winter of the 7th year of his reign. And the king loved Esther more than any of the other young women. He was so delighted with her that he set the royal crown on her head and declared her queen instead of Vashti. So at this point, all of a sudden, this displaced woman who's been adopted now has a crown on her head, and she is queen. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, can you, Mitchell? I mean, let's think about this. What is happening here? What is going on at this time? They've been moved. Her parents are gone. She's been adopted. She's now in the king's harem. Now she's in front of the king, and the king says, now you're the queen.
Yeah, I mean, maybe don't fall now. I think the guy said, I told Mitchell that Paul was the king of God, and I mean, I'm going to do King is Lord. I think in the church it's just so important, man. I think and too deep, without God. I understand that by God on Christ, and I mean, it's beautiful, deep, exciting God. I think
He's a beautiful, deep, and exciting God, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yes, that's what we're going to see here with Esther. And Esther continued to keep her family background and nationality a secret. She was still following Mordecai's directions, just as she did when she lived in his home. One day, as Mordecai was on duty at the king's gate, two of the king's eunuchs, those two guys, who were guards at the door of the king's private quarters, became angry at King Xerxes and plotted to assassinate him. So now Mordecai comes even more important because these two guys are setting out to kill the king. This wasn't something unusual in this day and age, because that was something that happened all the time, these plots to kill the king. Yeah. But Mordecai heard about the plot and gave the information to Queen Esther. She then told the king about it and gave Mordecai credit for the report. When an investigation was made and Mordecai's story was found to be true, the two men were impaled on a sharpened pole. This was all recorded in the book of the history of King Xerxes' reign. So now we have the Bible, this book, Esther, who is quoting out of another book as giving outside sources that we now have for us to read today about this woman who, after the displacement of the Jewish people, because they had not followed God's commands, didn't do what God told them to do. Now they're displaced. She's lost her mom and her dad. Now she's been adopted into Mordecai's family. Now she's been moved into the palace. Now she has a crown on her head. She's the queen. Mordecai is still inputting into her life every day. And she's not telling anybody that she's not saying any of these things. She's not talking about her nationality. She's doing everything the way Mordecai has told her. Then Mordecai comes along and hears about this plot to kill the king. She informs everyone about this, and now Mordecai is now to be praised because he saved the king's life. The Bible goes on, and we read in Esther chapter 3 now. Oops, I went to the wrong one, didn't I? Let's go there. Sometime later, King Xerxes promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, over all the other nobles, making him the most powerful official in the empire. All the king's officials would bow down before Haman to show him respect whenever he passed by. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that, Mitchell. I hit the wrong button.
No.
I know, we're on verse 2.
Wait.
But Mordecai refused to bow down or show him respect. This is vitally important because you never want to disrespect anyone at any time. And yet Mordecai says, I'm not bowing down to you. Then the palace officials at the king's gate asked Mordecai, why are you disobeying the king's command? They spoke to him day after day, but still he refused to comply with the order. So they spoke to Haman about this to see if he would tolerate Mordecai's conduct, since Mordecai had told them he was a Jew. See, these Jews had been displaced. So they were not in their home country, they were in someone else's. And now he's disrespecting and not honoring these officials in the way they see fit. But Mordecai wasn't going to do this. He wasn't going to bow down at this point. We read on, when Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down or show him respect, he was filled with rage. He had learned of Mordecai's nationality, so he decided it was not enough to lay hands on Mordecai alone. Instead, he looked for a way to destroy all the Jews throughout the entire empire of Xerxes. So now he looks at it and says, Mordecai has disrespected me. I'm going to do away with all Jews in our entire kingdom. This plot is very important, and it's very hard to think about. This isn't the first time, this isn't the last time that we look through history. I mean, this is not the only time that we see through history, through the Bible, through our own history in the 19th century of what people have done. So the Bible goes on and reads in verse 7 and 8, so in the month of April, during the 12th year of King Xerxes' reign, lots were cast in Haman's presence. The lots were called Purim, to determine the best day and month to take action, and the day selected was March 7th, nearly a year later. So they're looking and saying, so this isn't going to happen immediately. This is a year later. We're going to now destroy all the Jews. Then Haman approached King Xerxes and said, there is a certain race of people scattered throughout the provinces of your empire who keep themselves separate from everyone else. Their laws are different from those of any other people, and they refuse to obey the laws of the king. So it is not in the king's interest to let them live. If it please the king, issue a decree that they be destroyed, and I will give 10,000 large sacks of silver to the government administrators to be deposited in the royal treasury. So now it's set up. You're looking at in a year's time, less than a year, that the decree is going to go out and all of these Jews are going to be destroyed. Not just Mordecai, all of them. And yet we have this woman who was displaced from her home, lost her mom and dad, adopted by her cousin into his family named Mordecai. Then brought into the king's, this new king's harem, and then into his palace, and then a crown is placed on her head. And she's the queen. And now we have Mordecai who won't bow down to these officials. And now the decree is going out and setting up. And the Bible says this as Mordecai sent this reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Mordecai says these words, and they're vitally important. If you keep quiet at a time like this, I don't know when the time is, and I don't know what a time is that I look at it and say, oh, as a time like this.
Yeah.
But Mordecai is saying at a time like this, you think that you're not going to be killed? You're going to be killed because you're a Jew at this point. And this verse, as we look at it, who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this? All of this going on that's happening. And you go, wow, this is some bad stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not good stuff. And then all of a sudden you see this image that here this woman is, a Jew, the queen of a kingdom of displaced Jews who are about to be killed. And here Mordecai is saying, maybe you're queen just for such a time as this. Yeah. This is important. And I have just a couple of more verses because ultimately for you, I want you to think about such a time as this. I want you to think about that phrasing as I think about it. I think about it in my own life. I think about it from the standpoint that who knows if perhaps I was to be here right online at this moment for such a time as this. The such a time as this, sometimes things we don't see coming, we don't see happening, we don't know how they happen. We don't know why the circumstances are happening the way they are, and we wonder why has God abandoned us. And yet we could look at Esther and say the very same thing. Their whole family moved out and taken into captivity. To look at it and say her mom and dad passing away, dying. To know that she was adopted into a family by her cousin Mordecai. To know that she ended up in the king's palace to be a part of his harem. This is not what she set out to do or be. And then all of a sudden, she's the queen. And Mordecai goes, maybe all of this with you being queen right now is for such a time as this. I think there's some just such a time as this for all of us. There's things that's being prepared into your life that you don't see and you don't understand. You don't know what's coming around the corner. You don't know what's happening next year. You don't know what's happening next month. You know what you want, and then the circumstances don't line up and they don't fit really, really well into what you desire. But there's going to come that moment that you go, for such a time as this. See, I think it's for such a time as this. My last 3 years of my life, for such a time as this. God has something in store for you. And the Bible says, then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will do the same, and then though it is against the law, I will go to see the king. If I must die, I must die. So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. She says those words. He says, maybe such a time as this. And she goes, I'll go see the king, but I'm not supposed to. These rules we don't really understand as 21st century people. These don't make sense to us, but it's not for us to make sense of. It's just the way they were. So I think about it in this way. She was willing to die, and she says, if that's what I've got to do, but I'm going to go do something. I'm going to stand up and speak for those who can't speak. So what we see in the upcoming chapters, which we're not going to go over, is this touch and go of how does it work out. I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you how it works out because it's such a time as this. There comes that moment that each one of us decide in our hearts, is it worth my time, effort, and energy to read the Bible? What am I going to learn from this? What am I going to see from this? What am I going to know about this account of Esther? Mm-hmm. I want you to know from the account of Esther, no matter who you've come from, where you've come from, what's happened to you, I want you to know at such a time as this, it's time for you to stand up and speak up for the gospel of Jesus Christ, to tell other people about the good news of Jesus Christ. I give you this last verse, which is actually in the book of... I'm missing that verse. I'm missing that verse. I know, Mitchell, I'm missing that verse. That's no good. I need to bring that back in. But I will say this. Yeah. Let me pull...
Pony.
Huh?
Pony.
Yeah, well, it kind of threw me for a loop because I was going to say that verse, so I'm going to go back to this. Who knows if perhaps you were made, fill in the blank, for such a time as this.
Yeah.
Such a time as this is now. Go share the good news of Jesus Christ to a world who needs it. For I count it all joy to go and tell the good news of Jesus Christ to any and all about the grace of God that saved my life. So Mitchell,
yeah,
I'm going to encourage them to now go ahead and finish reading. You don't have to go back to chapter 1 or chapter 2 or chapter 3. We were at chapter 4. At that point, we went through several verses in chapter 3 and then a little bit in chapter 4. Read on and see what happens and be encouraged for such a time as this. Mitchell, would you dismiss us in prayer? Yes, do it to it.
All right. Lord, we thank you to say battle for Lord, when the major battle study, but I don't the way you do don't for you up. And I mean, right now we're doing some Maha swords and this process harder. And know that we pray that Lord, my time, can make sure about the ending. There's no king against warlords that you are the sacrifice God. Because I'm going to church and then no one pray. Amen.
Amen. We're going to tell you want to invite them to church on Sunday?
Yeah.
All right, invite them to church on Sunday, and then we're going to skedaddle out of here and let them finish reading the book of Esther. Or at least the next couple of chapters, right?
Yeah.
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 Find out what happens. You going to invite them to church for Sunday?
Yes.
Oh, I went to full screen on that, didn't I? Invite them to church, and then let's get off of here.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. You're invited.
Yes.
So you done? Tell them, say, see you later.
Yes.
Is that all you're going to say is yes?
Okay.
You're going to tell them, say, see ya.
Okay. So, thank you guys, everyone. Me voice do. And I just say in the YouTube. YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
Right there.
Yep, right there.
Right here.
Right there.
Thank you guys, everyone. You. See you soon, and then thank you for watching.